Did you know that when people fall in love, the brain often starts making mistakes? Big ones. These mistakes usually appear at the very beginning of a romantic connection when everything feels exciting, magical, and full of promise. During the early stages of dating or a relationship, the brain can convince someone that certain things about the person they're attracted to are absolutely true, even when they might not be. This doesn't mean love itself is an illusion, because love is one of the most powerful and meaningful experiences humans can have. However, the biological and psychological processes behind attraction can distort perception. They can cause someone to overlook warning signs, exaggerate positive qualities, and create emotional patterns that later turn into confusion or frustration. Many people experience this without realizing it. Someone meets a new partner, and within a short period, they feel convinced they have found the perfect person. Everything seems flawless, and the connection feels unique and rare. Yet months later, that same person may start noticing habits, behaviors, or personality traits that were invisible at the beginning. Suddenly, the person who once seemed perfect appears more complicated, more flawed, and sometimes even incompatible. What changed? In many situations, the answer lies in the brain itself. During the early phase of attraction, the brain releases powerful chemicals and hormones that influence how people feel and how they interpret the behavior of the person they are with. These chemicals evolved to help humans bond and form stable relationships, which historically improves survival and cooperation. However, they also create strong emotional illusions. One of the most important substances involved in this process is a hormone called oxytocin, often referred to as the bonding hormone or the love hormone. Oxytocin plays a major role in emotional attachment and trust. When it is released in the body, it creates feelings of warmth, closeness, comfort, and safety. Physical affection is one of the strongest triggers for oxytocin. Intimacy, hugging, cuddling, holding hands, and long moments of physical contact can all cause the brain to release this hormone. When that happens, the brain begins associating the person who triggered the oxytocin release with feelings of security and emotional connection. This is where the first major brain mistake can occur. Because oxytocin increases trust and bonding, it can cause someone to feel emotionally connected to a partner even before they truly understand who that person really is. The brain may begin idealizing the partner, assuming they are kind, trustworthy, and perfectly compatible simply because the bonding hormone has been activated. In other words, the emotional attachment can form faster than the logical evaluation of the person. Imagine meeting someone charming and attractive where conversation flows naturally, laughter feels effortless, and the chemistry is obvious. Perhaps there is physical closeness such as holding hands, hugging, or kissing. After that moment of intimacy, something shifts internally. The person may suddenly feel more attached, more invested, and more emotionally connected than before. It can feel as though the relationship has suddenly become deeper overnight, but in reality, the brain may simply be responding to chemistry. The oxytocin release can create a sense of emotional certainty that has not yet been earned through real experiences together. The brain starts filling in the blanks with hopeful assumptions. Instead of evaluating the person objectively, it begins building a positive story about who they might be. This is why someone may ignore warning signs early in dating. Friends might notice behaviors that seem concerning, but the person involved in the relationship may dismiss those concerns because the connection feels too strong to question. The brain is essentially wearing emotional rose-colored glasses, but oxytocin is not the only chemical involved in the experience of falling in love. The brain also releases dopamine, a chemical strongly connected to reward and pleasure. Dopamine creates feelings of excitement, anticipation, and motivation. It is the same chemical involved when people experience thrills, achievements, or other rewarding experiences. When someone receives a message from the person they are attracted to, dopamine levels can spike. When they see that person, hear their voice, or spend time together, dopamine surges again. The brain begins associating that individual with pleasure and reward. This combination of dopamine for excitement and oxytocin for bonding creates the powerful emotional state commonly described as being in love. It feels incredible and often unforgettable. However, like all reward systems in the brain, it can also become addictive. The brain quickly adapts to positive emotional experiences. The first few moments of connection may feel extraordinary. The first date might feel magical. The first time someone hears the words "I love you" can feel unforgettable. But over time, the brain becomes used to these feelings. What once created a strong emotional reaction slowly becomes normal. Psychologists describe this process as hedonic adaptation, which means people gradually return to a baseline level of happiness after repeated positive experiences. This leads to another common brain mistake in relationships. At the beginning, small gestures can create a huge emotional impact. A short date, a thoughtful message, or a simple compliment can feel incredibly meaningful. But as the relationship continues, the brain begins to require more stimulation to create the same level of emotional excitement. What once felt extraordinary may start to feel ordinary. This shift can create confusion because someone might start feeling that the relationship has lost its magic. They may wonder if something is wrong or if the connection is weaker than it used to be. Yet, in many cases, the relationship itself has not changed. Only the brain's response to it has changed. The same dynamic appears in many areas of life. The first time someone visits a breathtaking place, it feels unforgettable. But if they live there every day, the view might eventually become normal. The brain always adapts. In romantic relationships, this adaptation can lead to frustration. Someone may begin expecting more attention, more affection, or more excitement in order to recreate the emotional intensity of the early stage. They might start noticing small behaviors that bother them. Habits that once seemed charming may become irritating. Silence that once felt comfortable may begin to feel like emotional distance. These reactions do not necessarily mean the relationship is failing. Often, they simply mean the brain is transitioning from the intense stage of infatuation into a deeper stage of emotional connection. The early phase of love is fueled by novelty and chemistry, but long-term love is built on understanding, trust, shared experiences, and emotional stability. The difficulty appears when people expect the first stage to last forever. Biologically, that is almost impossible. The brain cannot maintain the intense chemical mixture of early attraction indefinitely because it would be exhausting for the mind and body. Over time, the brain naturally reduces those intense hormonal surges. When this happens, the relationship begins to shift. If the connection between two people is based only on chemistry, the relationship may begin to fade as the hormones settle down. However, if the relationship is supported by compatibility, communication, respect, and shared values, it can transform into something deeper and more stable. This is why emotional awareness becomes so important. Understanding that the brain can create illusions during the early stage of love allows people to slow down and evaluate relationships more clearly. Instead of quickly deciding that someone is perfect or imagining a future too soon, it becomes more helpful to observe how that person behaves over time. Real personality reveals itself through patterns. How someone reacts to stress, how they treat other people, how consistent they are with their words and actions, and how they handle disagreement all reveal far more about compatibility than the excitement of early attraction. These things cannot be fully understood in a few weeks of dating. They require time, patience, and real experiences together. Eventually, the emotional fog of early attraction clears and people begin seeing each other more realistically. At that moment, details that once went unnoticed start to appear. Habits become visible, personality traits become clearer, and differences in priorities or lifestyle may emerge. For some couples, this stage strengthens the relationship because they accept each other's imperfections. For others, it reveals incompatibilities that were hidden during the initial excitement. Neither outcome is wrong because it simply means the brain has moved from fantasy toward reality. Research also suggests that bonding hormones can reinforce commitment in established relationships. When partners share affection, emotional closeness, and meaningful physical contact, oxytocin can strengthen the emotional attachment between them. This bond may increase loyalty and emotional focus on the relationship. In practical terms, nurturing affection and emotional connection can reinforce the partnership over time. Simple actions such as spending quality time together, expressing appreciation, sharing meaningful conversations, and maintaining physical affection can strengthen the emotional bond between partners. These behaviors do not only feel good emotionally, they also reinforce the brain's bonding chemistry. The most important lesson from understanding the brain's role in love is awareness. Feelings are powerful, but they are not always perfect indicators of reality. Attraction can feel overwhelming and emotional chemistry can feel convincing, but healthy relationships require more than intense emotions. They require patience, observation, and emotional intelligence. Instead of asking only whether the feelings are strong, it becomes more valuable to ask deeper questions about compatibility, communication, respect, and shared values. Love is not just something that happens suddenly, it is something that gradually grows between two people through time, understanding, and mutual effort. The brain may start the story with excitement and powerful emotions, but the long-term success of a relationship depends on awareness, patience, and genuine understanding. When people recognize the brain's tendency to create emotional illusions during the early stages of attraction, they gain an advantage. They can enjoy the excitement of falling in love while still giving the relationship enough time to reveal its true nature. They can appreciate the beautiful emotions without rushing into conclusions about the future. And when the initial emotional fog eventually fades, as it always does, they can decide whether the connection they built is strong enough to grow into something deeper, calmer, and far more meaningful than the first rush of attraction, because real love is not just about the spark at the beginning, but about what remains after that spark settles into a steady and lasting flame.